Hello and welcome. You're listening to the 7th episode of the Clasax Victoria podcast. I'm your host, Brendan Toohey, and today I am very lucky and fortunate to be sitting down with an absolute saxophone legend of the industry, Mr. Niels Bijl. Good morning, Niels.
Good morning, Brendan.
Am I pronouncing that correctly?
That's
How do you say
perfect.
your last name?
Last name is Bijl.
Bijl.
Yeah. So it's close enough.
So I have many questions for you.
Awesome.
But before we get stuck into all of that, could you just explain to the watchers and listeners where we are right now?
Oh, look, I was about to say thanks for having me because you're organizing this, but
No worries.
It's actually more that I'm thanking you for coming out to Yarragon South.
Yeah.
You're actually, you've just walked into my house, my living room, which is at the same time the place where we run our concerts with the Yarragon studio. So thank you so much for being here.
No worries, it's my pleasure. Folks, this place is absolutely amazing. In the scenic, picturesque hills of Yarragon, which is an amazing, beautiful place. And then this house, which, as you said, is essentially like a concert venue. It's absolutely incredible, beautiful.
Yeah. No, we're very lucky to found this place. We've only lived here for about 5 years.
Yeah.
But I do remember the first time we walked into this room, and it was actually my wife, who's not a musician, she's a scientist, and she walked into the living room, saw the size of it. And just in comparison, we used to live in Melbourne in a unit that actually, including the courtyard and all the bedrooms, was as big as the living room we have now. And we actually felt a bit guilty because we weren't looking for a big space. But when my wife walked into this room for the first time, she immediately said, I guess, and this was a joke, I guess we need to buy a grand piano now and start organizing concerts. So that's exactly what we did. We bought a piano and then we rolled out the piano into the middle of the room, and we can seat up to 50, 55 people here.
Great.
And we've been doing that for for the 5 years that we live here. So yeah.
Amazing.
And I still, almost every day when I drive up and down the hill and I see the view and surrounded by nature and wildlife, I'm still pinching myself.
Yeah.
As a European.
Yeah.
I mean, just to give you an idea, I'm from the Netherlands, right?
Yes.
Everybody jokes that the Netherlands is flat. But what you don't know is you're up in the hills of West Gippsland, and officially it's like 400 meters above sea level.
Wow.
Yeah, the highest point in the Netherlands is 365 meters above sea level,
Wow.
and we call that a mountain. So yeah, very privileged, very glad to be here.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I'll have to get some photos from you and I'll overlay them on the video so everyone can see the setup and the view and just the surrounding area. Incredible stuff. So yeah, let's. Well, there's two ways we can do this. We can work backwards chronologically, or we can start at the very beginning and work forwards. For people who don't know you, as you said, you're from the Netherlands. Why don't we start at the beginning? Tell us your life story. What brings you here?
Well, first of all, your introduction is very kind. Honestly, to me, it's very simple. I'm Niels, and I play the saxophone, and I do it quite well because that's what I do. We briefly in the introduction, whilst you were setting up, we were talking about when you're a professional musician, you dive into something so deeply that outsiders often say, "Oh my God, you turned your hobby into your career." But the real truth is, once you find your niche, that is the thing you spend your time on, and it just means. You found a profession. You've lost a hobby.
It's not a hobby, is it? It's who you are. Yeah.
And for me, it's very simple. So in the Netherlands, music education has always been a government-funded after-school activity, where all families had a very simple fact in life. When they look at their kids, they go, "You pick a sport and you pick an instrument." So I've got one sister, and the two of us, we were asked to pick a sport and pick an instrument, and I picked. For some reason, unknown to man, I picked basketball and saxophone. And I was 11 at the time, and I just started playing saxophone. But before I even got my instrument, I started telling my friends at basketball training, actually. And one of my teammates looked at me and said, "Ah, saxophone. I just bought a bass guitar. We can start a band." And that's how it started.
Wow.
I was in a band playing really bad Jimi Hendrix covers and blues before I had my first lesson. So I picked it up when I was 11. It was a tenor saxophone. I still have photos somewhere. And we just immediately started playing blues and rock music, just a bunch of kids making noise. And I immediately got hooked on the idea that every single minute was spent on making music with friends. And then you go through high school, and at a certain point you have to decide what to do. And I pretty much went, well, saxophone, saxophone, saxophone. So I guess it's conservatorium. And I never looked back.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So you went to the conservatorium in, is it Amsterdam? Did you go?
No. So I grew up. I grew up in a regional part of the Netherlands, in a city near a city called Enschede, which is always joke. It's in the far east of the Netherlands.
Okay.
So to Australia, that means like, oh my God, that's like days away. No. So you've got Amsterdam, which is pretty much in the far west, and if you drive from Amsterdam straight east for about an hour and a half, you hit the border. You're at the other side of the country. That's where I lived.
Yep.
And if you were to drive 10 minutes further, you'd actually end up in Germany. So it's that small.
Yeah.
But that's where I grew up. I grew up near a city called Enschede and in a small town called Haaksbergen. That's where I went to school. That's where I had my music lessons. That's where I had my bands. That's where I played with my friends. And then I pretty much, when I realized I needed to get better at saxophone, I went to the nearest city. There was a conservatorium there, and I applied, mainly because I realized if you want to be good at what we do, you need to really work on your skills. And I was mainly playing blues and jazz, so mainly pentatonic, pretty much just farting around on a saxophone. And I applied for a conservatorium in the nearest city. And the conservatorium was in Enschede, and there was a brand new saxophone teacher who just got a job there as head of saxophone, and his name was Arno Bollenkamp. And he came from Amsterdam. He just graduated cum laude. So what do you call it, with distinction?
Cum laude, yeah.
Yeah, and he got a job teaching saxophone at a regional conservatorium. We met. I started learning off him. We ended up becoming dear friends. And yeah, I wouldn't want to say the rest is history, but that's how it started.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah. So that was always on tenor saxophone?
I started on tenor because my parents were very supportive of pretty much anything their kids chose to do, which doesn't mean that they were really focused on music. So when my mom heard that I had an interest in playing saxophone, she pretty much went to the local band in that small town where I lived. And the only question she got was, how old is he and how tall is he?
Oh.
Because we've got plenty of alto players, but if he's tall enough, we need someone on tenor, and that's why I started on a tenor. And it was a really crappy old tenor saxophone of a brand called Dolnet. Okay. It's you wouldn't know it. It's yeah. Just, I think it could very easily be an Eastern European model. And I remember when you held it straight in front of you, the bell actually pointed to the left. It was an absolute, wow. It was just a beast. Uh-huh. And but that was my first saxophone, and the first saxophone means a lot to anyone. And only when I started really getting into it, I actually got gifted an entry-level Yamaha tenor saxophone. But I really, also because physically that's the instrument that fit me the best, I just started on tenor. And when I walked into the world of classical saxophone, I was still playing tenor saxophone, which was in the beginning a little bit odd, because classical saxophone in the Netherlands is, it's just like, it has as much weight as classical clarinet or violin or piano or whatnot. But the majority of music written for classical saxophone is on alto. But I was just, it must be my stubborn nature. I stuck with the tenor. My teacher forced me to buy an alto halfway through first year, which meant that at conservatorium level, I had to buy a proper Selmer Super Action Series 2. So I had to buy an alto, And then I started playing that alto, and then I started feeling that that instrument was so much better than the entry-level Yamaha that my parents actually kicked their finances into gear and said, well, if you like the Selmer alto so much, we'll buy you a tenor as well. So I briefly studied an alto, but all through what you call bachelors, I pretty much played tenor. And that means all the repertoire pieces, developing my own repertoire by working with composers, transcribing my own music. And that's, and so between the end of my bachelor's and the end of my master's, I ended up recording 2 CDs with repertoire for tenor, saxophone, and piano, because it still, to me, is a point where we can still have a bit more focus. Or, in short, I just love tenor.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
I'm used to, for bass clarinet particularly, poaching repertoire as well. We often play a lot of bassoon repertoire or cello repertoire, even tenor saxophone repertoire. We often are, stealing things.
And why not? Because there is, and it may be a cultural difference, but there's so much of music education in Australia that's based on the AMEB. And there's a real repertoire-based standardized testing where if you want to do saxophone, you need to play saxophone repertoire. And it's often frowned upon, therefore, that you have the audacity to, for instance, play a Brahms clarinet sonata on a saxophone. But here's the thing, Brahms didn't care. There's music from that era, Brahms, Haydn, Mozart, Beethoven. If the music is there, if there's someone else on a different instrument who wants to play that music, the composer just goes, you want to play my music?
The Brahms clarinet sonata is a perfect example because it's also for viola.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
So
And
right.
it's just stunning music. And to me, if you really if you keep those blinders on and go, you need to, as a saxophone player, you need to focus on saxophone repertoire, that's fine. But then you miss out on the experience of playing Brahms. So even as an idea, even if you're dead against playing transcriptions, I still recommend people just do it. Just practice it.
Yeah.
Find a pianist and play that music because it will expand the way you look at music.
I agree, because it makes you solve problems that aren't intended for your instrument.
Yeah.
For example, bass clarinet, often we play the Bach cello suites.
Yeah.
And you have to manage your breathing and phrasing, and you have to find a way to make it work on your instrument. Yeah, so it's problem solving.
Yeah, I think the Bach cello suites are they're a very fine example, because I hear a lot of saxophonists doing the same thing, because especially on a baritone saxophone, if a baritone saxophone is played correctly, it's sometimes really hard to actually hear the difference between a cello and a saxophone. And I know all cellists who hear this, they'll never do. I mean, I'm off many context lists if I keep saying these things, but it's actually scientifically proven that if you, for instance, take a single note of a bass clarinet or a baritone saxophone, but then clip off the beginning and the end of the note and just have the middle of the tone, it will actually be almost impossible to hear what it is. It would need to be played at a proper level, but the essence of that sound actually travels the same. But then saxophonists, they look at the Bach cello suites and they try to play them, and then they really focus on, and this you'll find this with a clarinet as well, every single double stop for the cello, they start playing it as arpeggios. And I hear that, and every time I go, I just go,
it's not quite right, is it?
it's never an arpeggio. If there's a double stop on any string instrument, it's simply to have a main pitch be supported by a chord underneath. So quite often, if you were to play cello suites on a bass clarinet or a baritone saxophone, it was actually through a collaboration with a proper, one of the best Baroque specialists and recorder players in the Netherlands. I had a duo with him for 25 years. Wow. And when he first heard me play cello suites on a baritone saxophone, he just stopped me and he said, can you just stop that yodeling of those arpeggios? Because he said, there's just one note that's important. And pick that note, because it's a baritone saxophone. You can't do a double stop. And maybe every now and then you may just play one little grace note, or maybe two. But stop trying to, I think the essence is play transcriptions, it'll expand your horizon, but don't play transcriptions because you're trying to copy the original instrument. You play transcriptions because you want to honor that music by putting it in a different context, put it under a different microscope, giving it a different light. And here's the truth. When it comes to music, the number of pieces I've transcribed for saxophone is not equal to the number of pieces I've performed for saxophone. There's a lot of pieces that you transcribe and then you try them and then you go, what was I thinking? And then you just burn it and just do something else.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So let's go back a step.
Yes.
You've gone to the conservatorium for tenor saxophone, presumably graduated. What are you doing now? So you're still in the Netherlands, teaching, playing, forming groups.
Well, when I walked into the conservatorium, so the way conservatorium is set up is when I started, it was actually a construction of what you call bachelor, which was a 5-year course.
Wow.
And this is a 5-year course along normal school times. So it's 40 lessons a year, but for 5 years. But before that, there's also a moment where you can go to conservatorium, like a pre-conservatorium, whilst you're still in high school. You can do 1 or 2 years to get into the system. And that's what I did. So I did 1 year whilst finishing high school, which almost exploded in my face, because when I walked into the conservatorium, that's what I wanted to do. So I nearly didn't graduate from, because suddenly high school was no longer a priority.
Yeah.
But then throughout first year, I was actually struggling a bit because I was still playing in rock bands, but I was playing classical and contemporary. And at a certain point, I had to weigh out my options, because I listened to jazz and blues and pop and rock, but I was introduced to a world of classical music, but most importantly, contemporary music. And I started realizing that it's not just classical music, but it's also, you can actually collaborate with an actual living composer, and that person will write something for you, and you're creating something new. So at a certain point through first year, I was in a bit of it was trying to find the balance of, hang on, I love jazz. I don't know enough about classical, but that contemporary thing was like a new world to me. And throughout that first year, halfway through the year, I actually got a chance to go to a jazz concert in Amsterdam with one of my dream jazz heroes, Johnny Griffin. I have all his recordings, and it was my one chance to hear this man play live. Cool. I went to that concert. It was absolutely mind-blowing. And afterwards, I just went to this man. I had the audacity to walk up to him and just say, look, you don't know me, but I know you. You're my absolute saxophone god. Yeah. Thank you for this concert. And I did. And he looked at me and he immediately wanted to know who I was. And I told him, oh, look, yeah, saxophone, jazz, but classical and contemporary. And then he looked at me. And this is a man who influenced Coltrane and Parker and worked with Gordon and all these other jazz giants. He was really so important for the entire jazz movement. And he looked at me and he went, oh yeah, now if I have to start over now, if I were in your shoes now, he said, and if I had to make the choice of doing jazz or classical, he said, yeah, that's not even a choice. I would do classical and contemporary in a heartbeat.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's what I said. I said, but hang
really?
on.
Yeah.
No, hang on, because
what?
And he said, he said, when I started playing jazz, there was Lester Young, and there was Coleman Hawkins as the big people to look up to. But jazz was still a developing music. He said, you need to think about why so many people of my generation all sound different. That is simply because we all tried to survive on our instrument, and by surviving, we had to create our own style. What you now call jazz was just music to us. And we had to work really hard to not just become really good. I mean, Sonny Rollins, The Bridge. I mean, leaving or an already established career to just go practice underneath the bridge. You really had to be really outstanding to then actually build something for yourself. That's why in that time, everybody sounded different. And he said, now that I've done it for many decades, I do masterclasses at jazz conservatoriums, like in America. And 16-year-old boys walk up to me and they've memorized all my solos. And they can play my solo from memory, but they can make it sound like Dexter Gordon played it. And I just look at them and I go, but you shouldn't be copying me.
Yeah.
You need to be
That's not the
creating
point.
new.
Yeah.
So he said, therefore, if I had to start over now, I wouldn't go into jazz. I'd go into contemporary. And that point to me was the eye-opener. That was the one thing where I realized, if I really want this, and if I'm also stubborn enough to be that one tall kid, I wasn't like really talented, but I was driven. I liked the instrument, and I realized there wasn't enough repertoire. So it was Johnny Griffin who nudged me and said, if you really want this, then be the change. Add something new. So from that day, it was even my teacher, Arno Bornkamp, who the first lesson after that meeting, he looked at me and he said, I don't know what's going on, but something changed. And I thought, oh, you have no idea. From that moment on, I just practiced and I looked for pieces to transcribe. I looked for new pieces to be written. I looked for ensembles to be part of, just to do whatever you can to move that thing forward. If you love the instrument, if you take it serious enough, just like clarinet or any other instrument, if you take it serious enough, you have to find a way to stand on shoulders of giants, to look at the people who came before you, but you owe it to them to go beyond. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I did 5 years of bachelor, and then 2, which turned into 2.5 years of masters. I did graduate, thanks for asking. But I do also remember that especially the master's exam was actually 2 separate recitals, and both of them had to be rescheduled several times, because every single time the exam was set, I had to go into school and say, I understand, but this orchestra has asked me to play the bolero. So, and I had to reschedule my exams like 5 or 6 times.
Yeah.
And I remember that the conservatorium then, I started feeling really bad because I was so busy being out there, organizing my own concerts, playing with symphony orchestras, just getting stuff done. I felt so bad that I owed it to them. I need to do that exam. But the school looked at me and they said, if you would have to cancel a gig because you have to do your exam, then our school is doing it wrong.
I agree. Yeah, you're already in the industry doing the work. Yeah.
That's if you're already doing what you're supposed to do, the exam it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And I even realized that I've never entered any competitions. It's just a personal thing. I'm not fond of competitions. I never felt the urge. Also because I've never felt that I was maybe a bit more talented than I was. When I studied, I was only surrounded by people who were more talented than I was. I never entered any competitions because I didn't need to be reminded that I was constantly being surrounded by people who could outplay me on any given day. But the final recital of my masters turned out to be a competition, but someone else had signed me up. It was actually a competition. The school had set up a really cool thing that might be something that we could pursue here as well. The conservatorium did a end-of-year concert series where a teacher gets to pick one of the students who has to do their exam, and it's a master-student concert where the teacher has to play with the students. So they have to play duets. They also have to play several solo pieces, and it really is that standing on shoulders of giants idea. The teacher needs to show that they are the authority, and the student needs to show that if the teacher doesn't keep up his or her skill level, I'm ready to take your job. So it's like a competition. So you, as a student, you have the honor to play with your teacher, but also a chance to really go, that's how you do it, this is how I do it. And that series of concerts turned out to be sponsored by a local bank, and it was a competition. And I never expected to win that competition because it was a tiny little statue, but also like an insane amount at that time of $10,000.
Wow.
And I only played hardcore contemporary music. We played like the Sofia Gubaidulina Duo Sonata, arranged for 2 baritones. And it was full on in your face contemporary music. So I never expected to win anything. And then at the graduation night, suddenly someone got up and said, and the prize goes to, and my name was mentioned. And I didn't know what to say, because, I just did what I love doing, never expect any recognition for it. But 2 things happened. When your name is announced, you win something, your name is announced, everybody there will start applauding. But I was sitting next to my mum, and it's the same. My mum, who went to a community band when I was 11, not knowing anything about music, my parents were always supportive. And then at the final night of my conservatorium, when someone suddenly said, oh no, that kid deserves a prize, my mum sat next to me, and I kid you not, I look at her, she looks at me, big eyes, and the only thing she said was, oh my God, you're really good. And that still sticks with me, because that support, that parental support, is something that I strive for now that I'm a parent myself. It's not about seeing if your child is super talented, but if your child wants something, help them. And no matter if a teacher says they're talented or not, but just that amount of support is vital. And I think you know exactly what I mean. If you don't come from a supportive community, then there's no way you can make it. And the other extra bonus was the regional bank wanted to give an award, prize money, which was $10,000, because they just had no idea. They just went, 10,000 sounds reasonable. And that was the exact amount I needed to, at that point, buy a baritone sax. Great. So I graduated, got some money, went to Selmer, bought a baritone, and and now I've got the full soprano, alto, tenor, baritone, and I just call myself a professional saxophonist.
Amazing! What an incredible story.
So yeah, that's where it started. Yeah.
So, in between graduating from your masters, still in the Netherlands, and coming to Australia, what happened in that period? You're teaching, playing with groups?
Yeah. So teaching started early, because my teacher in first year conservatorium started asking me if I was teaching already. And I obviously said, well, no, because I'm still a student. And he jokingly said, no, you should teach, because teaching's simple. You need to find someone who can't play the saxophone, and then you need to sit next to them once a week and tell them they're doing it wrong, and then they'll give you money, and then you go to the pub. So, but I started teaching all throughout conservatorium. I started making a little bit of money teaching left, right, and center. Started building my own studio. Go through masters. Through masters, I already had a job. And what I told you, in the Netherlands, you have government-supported after-school music education. So I had a job at 2 different music schools. Then I started doing some, every now and then I got asked to do workshops and masterclasses at conservatorium. But most importantly, I love teaching, and I still do, but teaching is also a way of creating space to continue to develop repertoire. I started noticing that no matter how high the level of performing artist in the Netherlands, every single either soloist or member of chamber music ensemble, they would be playing every weekend, but every single one of them had a job as a teacher as well. Because no matter how good you are, there is hardly ever a level that you can rise to where performing, actually being a performing artist, can be sufficient in making enough money to pay rent or pay a mortgage.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was years and years. So from 1998 until 2019, it was years and years of teaching, preferably Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So you've got the rest of the week for rehearsals and organizing your own projects, doing a lot of orchestra work, because that tiny little country, the Netherlands, you probably have no idea, but that country is so small, it fits in Tasmania 4 times.
Wow.
But it still has about 12 or 13 fully funded professional symphony orchestras.
Wow.
And that's just the symphony orchestras.
Yeah.
There's also numerous professional military bands. Because of course you're lucky. You've picked an instrument where you can actually get a job in a symphony orchestra and a military band. Whereas saxophone, you can get a job in a military band. Symphony will always be freelance.
Yes.
But yeah, it's like 12, 13 professional symphony orchestras. And here I am, a professional, dedicated, not just classical, not just saxophonist, but classical saxophonist, not just classical saxophonist, but classical saxophonist specializing on tenor, which means that at a certain point, my lovely partner said, you need to stop playing the bolero. I've played the bolero hundreds of times.
Yep.
Same with Prokofiev, Romeo and Juliet. There's a number of staples that simply have a tenor saxophone.
Yeah. Lieutenant Kiji. and
So,
on. Gershwin stuff.
A lot of orchestra work.
Yeah.
So on an annual basis, like at least 15 to 20 orchestra projects a year. And one project, as you know, is 1 week's work. So that's not a bad thing. And also a year after I graduated, when I was a student, there was a saxophone quartet called the Aurelia Saxophone Quartet, and that was the benchmark for a lot of classical saxophonists. And a year after I graduated, they actually, the alto player, out of the blue, decided to stop playing in the quartet. He wanted to do other things, mostly music theater. So suddenly there was an actual audition for the spot of alto saxophone in one of the most well-known
groups,
premier saxophone quartets. And I was still that tall kid, mostly playing tenor saxophone. And I auditioned for that spot on alto. I literally had to drag my alto from underneath my bed, like dust off the case. And I practiced. And I won that position.
Wow.
And I clearly remember I expected more people to congratulate me, but there were more people calling me going, what just happened? Because you play alto, you play tenor, and now you play alto, and combined with people who specialize in alto and pretty much looking at me going, oi, that's not yours, that's mine. But I actually looked at it differently. When you play saxophone, classical saxophone, no matter if you play soprano, alto, tenor, or baritone, I urge anyone, play in a quartet. Because quartet is just the absolute best, but it's part of our heritage. When Adolf Sachs introduced the instrument in 1840, he introduced not one, but all 4 instruments. And when music started being written, it was immediately for quartet. So the instrument is always presented as a family.
Yes.
And the playing in a quartet is much more fun than playing by yourself. Playing in a quartet is also easier because you're working with 3 other people who can help get concerts, find repertoire. And I've always played in a quartet, but if you play in a quartet, whether you play alto or tenor, the position's the same. If you play soprano or baritone, it's a different kettle of fish. If you play baritone, you are the bass. If you play soprano, you're floating on top. It can only work if you're supported by the middle voices, but the middle voices are interchangeable. It doesn't matter if you're really good at tenor, you can still take those qualities and put that to work on alto.
Yeah.
So 1 year after I graduated, I suddenly do an audition. And I remember it came down to the last 5 final candidates became the last 2 candidates. So they expected it to be 1 round. It turned out to be 2 rounds. And then the clinch was actually when they offered me the position. It was a very brief phone call. It was on the 13th of May 2000, I think. The phone call was, okay, yeah, that was awesome. You've got the job. Mind you, only if you're not too busy, like it's Monday now, but are you free from Thursday? Because we're leaving for a tour to Japan.
Oh my gosh. Pack your bags.
So not just pack your bags, but it was an audition on Monday, leaving for a tour later that week, where one part of the program was actually playing an entire hour of music by Astor Piazzolla, of which the previous alto player had lost about 70% of the parts.
Oh no.
So not just, hey, you're going on tour, but here's a recording.
Transcribe the part.
Yeah, can you just figure out your parts?
Oh
Because
my God.
we don't have any, because this is way before computers. There was never an arrangement with a computer score where you print the alto part. No, every part was written by hand. And if someone loses those parts, it's gone. So I remember getting on the train from where I lived to Amsterdam Airport, and I was actually practicing on the train, still listening to, I think these are the right notes. So I'm just telling you because the idea is a year after graduation, all the way through to I think 2017 when that quartet, when we pulled the plug, there was no time to think about anything. It was just hard work.
Wow.
So it was either teaching, playing with orchestras, playing in a quartet that did concerts all over the world, playing with a piano, recording my own CDs, having a duo with a recorder player, having my own quartet projects on the side. So so just running around, really.
Amazing.
Yeah.
What an incredible story. Can I ask you a slightly more technical question?
Yes.
Oh, hello. You've mentioned, playing soprano, alto, tenor, baritone, saxes. I play all of those as well, but obviously as a clarinetist, I kind of just had to figure each out on my own.
Yeah.
How, and the answer to this might be different for every person, but how transferable or how different are they for you, I guess, or if you were teaching someone to play, like the difference between a soprano and an alto, and then alto and tenor, and then tenor baritone. Are you trying to play them differently, or are you trying to play them the same way?
Yeah, that's a good question. Step one, if you want that cat.
We've got a visitor. No, it's all good.
The first time I was confronted with that was when my teacher pretty much forced me to buy an alto. Because he said most repertoire is written for alto, and I just play tenor. And I remember I actually started with me just giving him money to buy an alto because I said I don't know anything about alto. And then when he did, I walked into his room going, so now tell me how to play alto. And then he looked at me and he said, just do it. Just stop whinging, just play alto. The way I transferred all my skills from playing just tenor to adding alto to the mix is a very simple one. It's not as common here, but music education, if you want to get up into higher level, it's all about scales and etudes. It's not about hand picking, like here's an etude book and we'll do etude number 7, 13, and 21. No. When you're at a certain level, you pick an etude book that's either just below your level or at your level, not miles above, and you play them all. So every single week as a student, I had to prepare 4 to 6 etudes a week. Not up there, but at your level, you need to put the hours in. So all I did to transfer tenor to alto was just take easier etude books, but just sit down and don't push the tempo up too far. At a comfortable tempo, play through all of them, and use the most important thing you have in your toolbox, and that's this.
Your ears.
Yeah. So first off, it does start off with, if you play on a particular type of mouthpiece on your tenor, don't play on a completely different setup on your alto. If you've got a C-star Selmer mouthpiece on tenor, don't put a bloody 7-star Autolink on your alto. Find something that is kind of similar. It doesn't need to be the same. But most importantly, put the hours in. Don't expect, if you start on one, then need to do some work on another instrument. You really just need to allow it some time. You can't pick one out of the box and just be good at it. And then over time, as long as you use these things, you will develop your own sound. And once you get a clear idea of how you want to sound on that soprano, alto, tenor, or baritone, then it actually becomes really, 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 really easy. But telling you now also makes me realize that there's yet another tiny difference coming from Europe and now being so active in Australia. That sound thing is something that isn't really part of Australian music education. That is. That isn't. I think I know. I think I know that you understand. I get a lot of questions from students who, for instance, they've heard my recordings on tenor and they go, "Oh my God, I love your sound. How do I get your sound? Or how did you get your sound?" And the answer is a very honest one. I've never actually worked on my sound. I've never actually sat down going, now I'm doing scales, now I'm doing etudes, and now I'm working on my sound. But I've always been drilled that when you play, make it sound good. Right?
Yep,
yeah,
absolutely.
And that makes, I mean, when I say this, it's like, yeah, duh, make it sound good. But that's not how we spend the majority of our time practicing. Because when we are practicing, we just need to learn the repertoire, right? So I often find students in a room practicing by themselves, working on their skills, but it sounds like crap. And then I walk in and they go, oh yeah, that's my practice sound. I just need to learn those notes. And then comes a very simple truth. If that particular sound that you have when you practice, if that is your practice sound and you use it 80% of the time you touch your instrument, then
you're practicing in that sound.
Newsflash, when you then walk out on stage, that's the sound you bring to the audience.
Yes.
If you really think that going from your practice room to the stage, you can turn a switch that says, now I'll display it with my concert sound, yeah, you're stuffed.
Yep.
It doesn't work.
Yep.
So how did I develop my sound on soprano, alto, tenor, baritone? Well, just a very simple reminder, I still practice a couple hours a day. I always make it sound good. I always have these things on. And one of my biggest teachers was Brian Pollard. It's probably a name hardly anyone has ever heard of here in the Netherlands, but he was the principal bassoonist of the Royal Concertgebouw Orchestra.
Wow.
So he's a man of standing,
Yeah.
right? And he was world renowned, especially in the world of double reed players and bassoonists. They know the name Brian Pollard. Brian Pollard was famous for one, pretty much he taught himself how to play the bassoon.
Wow.
Number two, all throughout his life, he often practiced in his practice room, blinds shut, lights turned off, eyes shut. Just so that he could be alone with his sound. And then suddenly, after decades of doing that, people people remember him for sounding awesome. Like, really?
Yeah.
So if you want to sound good on soprano, alto, tenor, baritone, whenever you practice, don't make the difference between mouthpieces too big. Put a lot of hours in, but just doing the miles, playing those etudes, and making sure you never sound like crap.
So you're always trying to make it sound good.
Yeah.
Are you trying to make it sound like a soprano saxophone, or trying to make it sound like a baritone saxophone, or are you trying to go, or is your sound concept pretty similar across the family?
I think so. I think so, but yeah. So my ideas of playing an alto might be different from a lot of other people playing alto, because I didn't approach the world of saxophone through alto. A lot of people who started on alto and focus a lot of all those saxophone concertos on alto, they see an alto as present as a soprano saxophone. For me, an alto is a high tenor.
Yes.
A baritone is a completely different beast. I find myself, I never expected this, but apparently now I run a concert band as well, and I just had a new member, like only joined last week, and he's on baritone. And at the end of the rehearsal last night, he came to me and he was so happy because he came up to me and he said he's been playing in bands for decades, but he said when I play baritone in a band, every single band conductor always tells me to play softer. But he said, I've now worked with you through 2 rehearsals and 1 concert, and you've never asked me to turn it down. And I look at him and I go, well, of course not, because a baritone always needs to be present.
Yeah, it's an important role.
Yeah. So I even told him, when a band conductor looks at the saxophone section and says, hey guys, softer, ignore it. Because he's not talking to the baritone. Because the baritone is a different beast. I'm very, very strict on when it comes to teaching saxophone, it's all about skill-based. You need to have a proper embouchure, proper breathing support, proper everything. With baritone, yeah, you need to have those skills, but you also need to be able and brave enough to throw all the rules you know out the window to make that thing sound like a beast.
Yeah.
Yeah, it needs to be polished and beautiful, but every now and then you need to make it grunt and just be obnoxious. And that's, so the baritone lives slightly outside. When it comes to soprano, I do have my own ideas of how a soprano should sound. I often feel that soprano can be a bit too much in your face, too shrill. If you know the instrument I have, I actually own a red copper buffet crampon, which is renowned for it just having a beautiful warm honey-like quality of sound. And it's also a one-piece soprano saxophone.
This is a Senzo, is it?
It's an old one.
Oh, okay.
It's I think it's called the Prestige. I don't even know.
Oh, wow.
It's an old series. It's a red copper one.
Beautiful.
I picked it up at my favorite saxophone shop. I'd been looking for a one-piece soprano for many, many years. Couldn't find one. The majority, I don't know what you play.
Mine has an attached neck as well, so it's a one piece body, but I know most of them are removable necks.
Yeah, so the majority, especially people who, and this is like such an Australian thing, the doublers, they often tend to go for the Yanagisawas with the loose the extra neck, the little bent neck.
Yeah.
Jazz players love that particular model of a one piece with a slight bend in the neck as well, which is one I love as well.
That's what I've got.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the best sopranos there is. But I do believe that with soprano, I love it needs to be a one piece.
And definitely not a curved soprano.
I've played curved sopranos, but I'm not allowed to anymore because an alto already looks ridiculous on me. If I play a curved soprano, I'll just maybe I'll play one day just to point out that I shouldn't.
Yeah, amazing.
Looks like this. Yeah, and also my approach to soprano. I now play right now. I actually play equal amounts of soprano, alto, tenor, baritone. There's no real goal. It's a very simple rule. The music dictates which instrument I need to bring to rehearsal. Yeah. But my soprano playing has been developed through playing with a recorder player for 25 years. So my soprano playing is not developed through playing saxophone repertoire. So for one, when you hear me play soprano, I tend to not overuse a huge wailing vibrato, because that's one of the things I really
too overpowering.
Yeah, it's not for me.
Yeah,
not for me. Yeah.
So your duo with the recorder player, was that like early music, like Baroque style, or was that contemporary?
No. Say 75% early music, Baroque music, and 25% contemporary.
Yeah. So I guess that 75% of Baroque music, you're trying to play with a certain sound and style, and that would have really informed your soprano
Yeah.
concept of sound. Absolutely.
Yeah, but
Amazing.
it's fascinating because now that I'm here, one of the first ensembles, one of the first collaborations I started was with Peter Hagen, who's a harpsichord player. Someone I met purely by chance, because when we moved to Australia, we always dreamt of living somewhere in country Victoria. And the first place where we tried out living in country Victoria was north of Melbourne in the area of Broadford. And we rented a cottage just somewhere outside of Broadford. And the owner of the cottage, when she heard that I was a musician, she immediately said, "You should meet my neighbor. He's from the Netherlands as well. You'll probably get along."
Wow.
So I thought she meant like, really, maybe if we get a chance, we'll set up a meeting, we'll have some. But she pretty much said, "Jump in my ute and I'll drive you there." So she raced me through her paddocks, and it was like a really bumpy ride to her fence. And I saw a house in the distance, beautiful mud brick house, and she just started hollering his name, like, "Peter, Peter." It was really awkward, because then I realized, yes, there was a Dutch person living in the woods just outside of Broadford, and he's a professional musician, but he was actually a harpsichord player.
Wow.
And I don't think it was very high on his wish list to start a collaboration with a saxophone player.
No.
But when I heard that, I was immediately intrigued, because I'd already played with a recorder player for 25 years, which is, for an Australian perspective, it's quite uncommon.
Yes.
So I was really keen on getting to know him. So it took me a while, but we finally started talking, and then we started rehearsing, and now we've had a duo for many, many years. And when you play Baroque music, and my duo with Peter is mostly based on unknown Baroque music. It's called Duo de Fesch, after a Dutch Baroque composer, de Fesch. And through working with a highly trained harpsichord player, you get to play also in different worlds of tuning.
Yeah.
Because we often play in piano tuning, which is like vol temperiert. It's a compromise, whereas harpsichord players can actually give you a whole range of different kinds of Baroque tuning. So like I said, my approach to soprano is the same as for alto, tenor, and baritone. Use these,
Yeah.
especially with soprano.
Yeah.
Use these.
It's got to be in tune.
Yeah,
it's
it's a simple rule. You need to play the right notes at the right time, as in tune as possible. That's it. That's 95% of what we do.
Yeah.
And the 5% that's left is what makes you stand out from the rest. So it's the most important thing in your life. But those first three things, especially when playing Baroque music.
Yeah. Absolutely. I'm glad you mentioned, moving to Australia. Let's talk about Australia now. What was the decision process or thought process behind coming to Australia?
I met my partner in November 2002, I think.
Okay.
And Christina was, at the time, we were introduced through a mutual friend who is a scientist who from Sydney but moved to Germany, and he kind of had this sneaking suspicion that the two of us might get along, or maybe had some issues to fight out.
So Christina's Australian?
So Christina's Australian,
gotcha.
and she was studying. She studied at she's a botanist. Studied at Monash and Melbourne Uni. Coincidentally, you may not know this, but Melbourne, Victoria now has a new floral emblem, and it's a beautiful little daisy.
Okay.
That daisy actually was discovered or named by my partner, Dr. Christina Flan.
Great.
But when I met her, we were introduced through a mutual friend. Initial contact was via email. She then flew to the Netherlands, where we actually got to meet each other and realized something was starting. She decided to move to the Netherlands because she met me at the time that she'd done all her research for her PhD. And she pretty much very practically said, I need somewhere in the world to sit down and write. So if you have a room for me, then I'll just move to the Netherlands. She lived with me for many, many years. But from that moment, I also visited Australia quite regularly, because I went back with her to Melbourne to meet her family. I did a concert at Wesley College to introduce her family to what I did. And that's where I met Michael Ignowski and and some other people in the Melbourne saxophone scene. And from the early 2000s, I was in Australia at least once a year.
Okay.
And then you start meeting people, because every time I came, I would tell my newly found friends and colleagues, hey, I'm back in Australia, would you like to do a concert? So every time I came, I did something. And then, unfortunately, around 2017, 2018, my parents got seriously ill. They started getting really, like, old age, physical problems, and they were pretty much, we were there to support them in their final days. And in taking care of them, Christina suddenly realized that she was living very far away from her mum.
Yeah.
She was very close to her mum, and she realized that she really wanted to spend more time with her mum. So even though we had dreams of maybe one day moving to Australia, at a certain point it went really quickly. My parents passed away. Christina realized she wanted to be closer to her mum. So pretty much it was just a moment.
It's time to go back, yep.
She said, I think it's time to go back. And I think I started packing before she did. Because at that point I realized, you can't get around that.
Yeah.
And also, I like to do things. And the Netherlands is a fantastic country with lots of opportunity. But at a certain point, I'd already played with all the orchestras. And I've done so many wonderful things. And I've met so many wonderful people in Australia. And I just thought, moving to Australia is a new playground. So we had no plan. But I did know that moving to Australia means one thing, and that is something that Australians don't quite realize. In Australia, there isn't a lot of support for the arts. It's fair to say, right?
Yes.
So when my European colleagues heard that I was moving to Australia, some of them frowned, and some Australian colleagues as well. They look at me going, "You're coming from Europe. We want to go to Europe, and
Yes.
you're coming to us."
Yeah.
But here's a simple fact: the arts isn't. We've noticed through COVID there was no support for performing arts, no support for universities, so you were all left out to hang out to dry. There's no support for the arts, no support for performing music. So it's more a question from me to you. If you walk into a field where there's no support, what were you thinking?
Yeah, I guess you create your own opportunities, which I think is exactly what you've done.
Yeah, but honestly, so you see, I'm from a really privileged country. I mean, I'm a senior white male from Europe.
Yes.
So it was pretty much whatever I wanted to do, it was there for the taking. And then I get introduced to a country, to like a continent called Australia, where there's no, if it's sports, no
Yes.
music. And then I keep meeting people like you. Every time I came, I was asked to do masterclasses and workshops, and I meet new young people who look at a society that says there's no support, and then they still come to me for a workshop and a masterclass. And I realized the only thing you really need in our profession, it's not talent. It's a stupid drive and tunnel vision.
Yes.
So here's a simple fact. Coming to Australia, the people who are smart enough to stick to music, they have that kind of tunnel vision that I can work with.
Yes.
Whereas in Europe, there's a lot of people who go through the system, and there will be a place for them. So the chance, the reason why we moved to Australia was a family-based one. And so we moved here on a whim at the end of 2019, at a moment where I even promised myself, I'm going to, first thing I'm going to do is not dive into the scene like a bulldozer. First, I'm going to do nothing for a year. And then the world gave us COVID, so that was a real treat. I had to do nothing for a year. But from that moment on, I was in a country where I could work with all these people who all had that tunnel vision. And now apparently this is our 7th year here.
Yeah,
So,
wow.
yeah.
I think the way that I first met you was virtually through COVID, I think. I think it was a Monash Uni woodwind day that had to be run virtually, I think.
Oh yeah.
And you were the saxophone guy on the
Yeah,
on the
could be.
Zoom call.
Yeah.
And I think got chatting. I might have asked a question or two, and
Yeah.
yeah, since then I keep bumping into you at various events. Like
Yeah.
you're always at.
But there was
concerts and all sorts of
Monash. There was Monash. There was Lachlan Davidson.
Yes.
Lachlan Davidson. When I really started, so the first thing I did was go, if and when I could, all I did was go to concerts. I wanted to know the people. I wanted to, and where do you meet your future colleagues? They're out there. They're playing.
Yeah.
And one of the first people, the two people who were really important to me, it was Sarah Bijl, Wonthaggi based, but one of the best baritone players in Australia, and just a really good person to work with. And through trying to pass my knowledge on, years and years of experience as a player, I wanted to also see what I can do in the tertiary system, and it was Lachlan Davidson, who has the same open-minded vision as I have, because he was the saxophone teacher at Monash, and he pretty much looked at me and he said, look, having you on board only widens our options.
Yes.
So he was very generous in having me at Monash as well. So that's where I started, and through him, he used to play in a quartet with Peter Clinch. And when he knew I moved here, he pretty much said, I think I need to go into that world again, because it's a bit of my past and I want to see if I can rekindle it, see what's there. And we both immediately agreed we needed Sarah Bijl on baritone, and that's when we started the Clinch Quartet. And through Monash, we had a number of Clinch Academy sessions at a university as well.
Yeah, amazing. I should say, folks, all of these names, Sarah Bijl, Lachlan Davidson, Michael Lichnowsky, Joseph Lalo, all these people, they're on my list for this podcast. They have been on the list for a very, very long time, and we will get to them. Not Peter Clinch, unfortunately, but yes, all of these incredible saxophone specialists, they will be in future upcoming episodes, so stay tuned for those.
Yeah.
Niels, thank you so much for your time today.
Oh.
Is there anything else that you would like to plug? Concerts for Yarragon Studio? Anything else that you want to touch on quickly before we have to start wrapping things up?
Well, so as you know, I mean, your introduction was really kind, but honestly, the only thing I do is, your first question was, would you like to look back? Would you like to go back to the start? The way my mind works is I see nothing but opportunity. Everywhere I look, even when I meet you, I'm immediately started thinking, oh, is there something we can do together? Or what is there that needs to be explored? There is nothing but opportunity here. And through following those opportunities, I've noticed one very simple, it's a golden rule. All you need to do is start something, and something will come out of it.
Yes.
And I do have to say that where you are now, I'm really grateful that you took the time and effort to actually come here. This whole Yarragon Studio idea is something that is really dear to us, because I still find it really difficult as a performing artist. See, clarinet, strings, flute, bassoon, if you work hard enough and you need that bit of luck, you can actually get a position where you can find a job, either in an orchestra or whatnot, even teaching at NM. Or for saxophone, you're often the odd one out. But you have to constantly create your own thing. And through this Yarragon Studio thing, it's a very simple thing. We just moved here and started organizing concerts at least once a month, and then 2 festivals each year. And the main reasons, 2 reasons, is to create access for the people in our community to proper high-level music being played by the right people. And that last thing is a very important drive behind what we do. It's not just the best music, but also musicians who are open-minded. But not just creating the concerts for the people in our region, but also, we've been now doing it for about 5 years, really making sure that it's a not-for-profit. Every single dime of ticket sales, it's a really stupid economic basis for building something, but every single dime through ticket sales goes straight back to the artist. And that is something that, if I need to plug something, that's the most important thing. If you can, create spots where you can play so that people can be heard. And also, by the end of it, they can actually also send you an invoice that at least helps cover for the initial investment of learning the repertoire, buying the mouthpieces, buying the music, buying the etc. It's something that if we just pull together and keep doing these things, and that's what you're doing as well through Clasax, creating that community, and through that community creating opportunity. It's that simple.
Yeah.
So
I just want to say a massive thank you, not just from myself, but from Clasax and everyone that, you know, watches and listens to these podcasts. Thanks for being an amazing human and for creating something so, you know, incredible, not just with Yarragon Studio, but all the initiatives that you've come up with. It's a fantastic thing for the community and just Australian arts in general. So from all of us at Clasax, thank you very much. And yeah, we'll wrap it up and leave it there. Thank you again. And folks, if you're watching this, make sure you subscribe, like, comment, all that jazz. If you have any questions, make sure you drop them in a comment. Who do you want to see on the podcast next? We're trying to go clarinet, saxophone, alternating like that. So make sure you're subscribed and you'll see when the next episode comes out, hopefully very soon. I've got a few that are already recorded, so I just need to edit them and upload them. So thanks very much, and we'll see you next time. Thanks. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.